Good evening, everybody.
Kabbalah Taraf, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay. So we're going to do a Shulchan Aruch. Is it Hashem? Let me see. I thought there was. Okay. Yeah, there is. Okay. That's what I thought. Okay, so it says in the Shulchan Aruch Daled, B'Shabbat Chamishi, right? And the fifth Shabbat, Shul Kaftet Badar, which is the 29th of Adar, Motziin Bet Sfarim. We take out two Sifrei Torah. באחד קורא פרשת השבוע, one is you read the parsha שבוע, ובשני החודש הזה, the second one is the חודש הזה, which is talking about the month of Nisan. לכן, הוא מפטיר, what's the מפטיר? בראשון באחד לחודש, right, this הפטרה. Okay, that's Daled. Let's go to Hey. So Hey says, חל ראש חודש אדר הסמוך לניסן. If Rosh Chodesh Adar, right, which is close to Nisan, meaning what? The second Adar, if there's two Adars, as we said, sometimes there's two Adars because it's a leap year. Right, I'm not really sure if the word leap year applies to this, right? What it is, it's more like a full year, whatever you want to call it, right? Because a leap is like implies more like shorter. Okay, whatever. Anyway, right? It's a full year, 2 months, 2 months of Adar. So there we're talking about the second month of Adar, which is close to Nisan. If it falls on the weekday, אפילו בערב Shabbat, even Erev Shabbat, which is Friday, מקדימים לקרוא פרשת שקלים בשבת שלפניו. So he says we push up to read Shkalim on the Shabbat before, ומפסיקים בשנייה, and then on the second Shabbat we rest. כדי שתהא פרשת זכור בשבת הסמוכה לפורים. Why? Because we want Parshat Zachor to be juxtaposed to Purim, milefanea, beforehand, right? Not after. Beim chal Purim berev Shabbat. So if Purim falls on Friday, makdimim nikrot parshat zachur b'Shabbat shelefanav. So then we're going to read it on the Shabbat before, right? Parshat zachor. That's the way it works. Okay, so that's hey. I think we have two more in the Shulchan Aruch here, and we're done. We have also one more Beit Yosef. Zayin. Okay, so says the Shulchan Aruch in Vav, Hayamim sheraui likvua behem Rosh Chodesh Adar, right? The days that we can make Rosh Chodesh Adar, right? As we said, Zavdu. These are the 4 days of the week that you can have Rosh Chodesh Adar. Right, so as we said, right, this is an abbreviation. What does that mean? Zayin is Shabbat, Bet is Monday, Dalet is Wednesday, and Vav is Friday, right? This is going to be the possibilities for Rosh Chodesh Adar. So he says, the Siman, the Shabbatot Hafsaka. So if you want to have like a acronym, whatever you want to call it, right, a abbreviation for the Sabbaths that we stop reading, it's going to be like this, right? If Zatu, what does that mean? If it falls on Shabbat, we're going to stop reading on the 15th, right? Stop adding there. If it Bet, Bo, right? Boo, whatever, Babu, Bo or Boo, right? Whichever one you like better. So, right, that means if it falls on Monday, we're going to stop on Friday, the sixth day of the week. I'm sorry, not of the week, of the month. Dad, right, means if it falls on Wednesday, we're going to stop on the 4th day of the month. Take a break. Ubiv, right? Ubiv. So what does that mean? If it falls on Monday, no, I'm sorry, not Monday. If it falls on Friday, they're going to stop 2 times, right? One is going to be on the 2nd day of the month, and then again on the 16th day of the month. We're going to stop twice. This is just a review of what we said yesterday, right? In the tour, a bridge form of this whole thing, right? Okay, so that's the story. Klomar means to say, he says, Keshechal Rosh Chodesh b'Shabbat. If Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbat, mafsikin b'chamisha sabo. So we're going to stop on the 15th, right? As we said. The Siman Zatu, right? That's the abbreviation. Keshechal b'yom bet. If it falls on Monday, right? So then we mafsikin bevav. We're going to stop on the 6th of the month. Bo uvesiman bav, right? That's the abbreviation. Keshechal daled b'yom daled mafsikin b'daled. I'm just repeating what I just said, right? You're just reading through it. If it falls on Wednesday, right, then we're gonna stop on the 4th of the month. Dad. Right? Okay. Vesiman Dad, that's the abbreviation. Kishachal b'yom Vav, if it falls on Friday, mafsikin b'shtei Shabbat. We're gonna stop twice, right? When is that? Bet, right? The 2nd of the month, Bo. The Yud Vav Bo, and also the 16th of the month. Okay, that's the story. Good. So then he says the Siman Ubiv, right? And that's going to be your abbreviation. So there you go, right? You're all set. So if they make you the gabbai of the synagogue, right, you're going to know what to read on which day. Okay. All right, good. So that's the story there. So we have one more, as we said, right? One more Beit Yosef, one more Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so let's see what we got here. And then we're going to go to the laws of Purim. So it says Beit Yosef like this. Katvu b'Tosfot, it says in Tosfot, right? Beresh Perek Haya Koreh, right? In the Brachot, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph, right? Diyesh Parshiot HaMechuyavim Likot Deoraita. Oh, here, right? This is what we discussed yesterday, right? So it says Tosfot, there are certain Parshiot, certain passages that we're obligated to read from the Torah, right? As we said, right? There's 2 of them. If you remember, we mentioned yesterday. Kemo Parshat Zachor, like Zachor, right? And Parshat Paraduma, right? These two are from the Torah, right? So therefore, right, a person should try to come on those days and here because otherwise he's going to miss the mitzvah, right? There is, by the way, a way to make it up also. If you missed it. First of all, they usually have like later readings also, like, ladies' readings. The ladies come later, so you're gonna find like a reading in the afternoon sometime before mincha. Many shuls have that, right? Many communities have that. That's one way to make it up. Another way would be to come actually when they read this as the Parsha Shavua, right? Which is going to be in the summer before Rosh Hashanah, right? And you're going to tell the Chazan, the Baal Koreh, you're going to tell him, listen, my friend, I didn't hear Parshat Zachor in the right time. So can you have me in mind, to fulfill my obligation now from the Torah? And hopefully the Chazan will tell you, sure, my friend, right? I'll be glad to help you, Just leave the tip, right? Leave the tip on the bima, right? I'm joking, but it's that's the story, right? So that's the way it goes. You can't make it up. There is a way to make it up. If you missed it, you got to be conscientious. You know what I mean? And try to not miss it. Don't miss it twice, right? If you missed it once, okay, right? But if you miss it twice, already that shows some negligence right there. Whatever. So that's the story. What about the ladies? Are they obligated to read this, right? So the truth is that there is a machloket, in the poskim, if they're obligated or not. But the right, so therefore we say the rule is like this, if they can come without, having to, make a ruckus in the house, and they don't have what to do there, like something crucial in the house, so they should try to come because some poskim say. In fact, I think it's most of the poskim, say that the women are also obligated to hear Zachor, So therefore, they should come to the shul and try to hear it, right? If they can. If they can't come, it's something, whatever. Let's say, there's children there, they can't get out of the house, whatever, right? So they can't get out, they don't have a babysitter, they don't have somebody, right? So, okay, right? So we can rely on the lenient opinion, But for the men, it's more crucial, because there's no machlokat there, right? You really have to come and hear it. So therefore, the men should be even more adamant to come and hear Parshat Zachor and also Paraduma, right? As we said, Zachor is even stronger because it's more like a prevailing opinion, that's from the Torah. Okay, good. So that's the last bet Yosef. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch, and we're done with this chapter. And we're going to Purim, right? Bezat Hashem. We're going to the Purim party, right? Whoever wants to come is invited. All right, good. We're finishing the Hanukkah party, right? We're done with that. Okay. So here we go. Yeah. So it says here like this, right? In the Shulchan Aruch, Yesh Omrim, right? Some say Parshat Zachor, Parshat Paraduma, Chayavim Likat Olam Midoraita. Some say that these two parshiot, right, are from the Torah. כך בני היישובים שאין להם מניין צריכים לבוא למקום שיש מניין בשבתות הללו. So he says, therefore, right, people who live in the villages, right, and there's no minyan there, so what they should do is come to town, that day and hear these parshiot, right? They have to make an effort to come in, right? To drive in there, right, and hear the parsha. Right? That's what you got to do. So these are from the Torah. So therefore, he says, right? You got to drive in, right? So yeah, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Of course, we're not talking about driving in on Shabbat, right? We're going to talk driving on Friday and, and stay for Shabbat. I'm not telling you to drive in on Shabbat. Okay, we're not that modern over here, right? We're old fashioned over here, right? We do things the old fashioned way. Okay, so what do you call it, right? Uh, good. So says the Rama here, right? Ve'im efshar lahem lavo. So says the Rama, if they can't come, right, for some reason or other, mikom makom izaru likrotam b'nigetam b'tamam. So he says, you know what? At least try to read it in your house, right? With the proper, ta'amim, right? With the proper trup, they call it, right? The Ashkenazim call it trup. You know what the trup is, right? That's the melody that we do. Right? So try to do it with the melody, right? Make sure you, right? That's not really, you don't really fulfill your obligation with that, right? It's just right, a poor man's excuse, right? For pretty much, right? You can't fulfill your obligation by reading it at home. So, you know, that's the way it is. Right? But what I'm talking about is like this, right? That yeah, the truth is, you should have a minyan for these things. You know what I mean? So even if you have a Sefer Torah in your house, some people have a Sefer Torah in their house, Maran, my Rabbi, Alba Shalom, he had a beautiful Sefer Torah and where he studied, and it was right there standing on his desk, right, all the time. So the Sefer Torah was always ready to go by him, It's always, I wish we all had, a Sefer Torah in our house. It's a very big zechut. They say, that if you have one in your house, it brings a lot of blessing to your house when you have a Sefer Torah. Wealth, all kinds of good things, right? Okay. So anyway, right? It's a source of blessing. Okay, so that's the story. So yeah, we're done with this chapter. So we're gonna go to the next chapter, which is Purim.
Did I miss something? I thought we were already on Purim.
Yeah, well, this chapter is like a bridge,
Okay.
It's not here, it's not there. Because it's not really talking about Purim, specifically. It's talking about the month of Purim, which is Adar, right? So it's like, it bridges you over into the Purim.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So yeah. So right, it says here the laws of Megillah, right? So here we go. It says the Tur, Karsina ben Megillat Tanit, right? It says in this book, Megillat Tanit. There's a book like this, which is an ancient book written in the Second Temple era, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it says in the Talmud. Im Yom Yud Daled B'Yom Tetvav Be'Adar Yom Puria Inun. Et Yom, right? So it says not in, but et. So it says, right, that the 14th and the 15th of Adar, those are the days of Purim, right? So basically, Purim is 2 days, right? Depending on where you live, right? Each place has its own destination and its own holiday, right? Whatever. So we'll talk about that, right? How that works. It's a whole discussion. So anyway, right? In the Lala Mifsad Behon. So it says over there in this book that since these 2 days, right, are Purim, you shouldn't do any lemispat behon, right? You shouldn't do any eulogies. So what does that mean, right? If you have somebody, God forbid, that died, right, they shouldn't eulogize them on these days, right? Because that creates like crying and sadness, and so we don't want that. It's a holiday, you know what I mean? So we want to avoid that. Another thing, right, he says there is that you're not allowed to fast on those days. No fasting. So therefore, right, the rabbis shouldn't make like a fast day, right? You know, the rabbis don't really make new fast days. Sometimes, when there's like a situation in Israel, some kind of a thing going on there, like we have today, the Rabbanut, right, that makes like a fast day, that people should fast on a certain day. The truth is, I think most people don't even listen to it, and rightfully so, because they're not really, they don't really have the power to decree a fast day. The Rabbanut, whatever. So it is what it is, right? So God bless them. Yeah. Only the sages, had the power to do this, to make a fast day like this, I mean, to make enactments like this, whatever. So, today we don't have that anymore. And also, my rabbi used to tell me all the time, Alav Shalom Maran, he used to tell me that, nowadays, the best way to atone, or to get favorable judgment is not to fast. It's not the best way to do it because we're very weak, so we have a hard time fasting. So it's not a very productive way of doing things, in our times. So therefore, there are better ways to do it, like study Torah, give tzedakah, give charity, right? Things like this are more effective in our times. But fasting, what happens is that since we're like very weak, and feeble in our generation, so what happens is that when we fast, we just we shut down and we're not productive. So, it kind of like defeats the purpose of the whole thing. So therefore, right, that's why the rabbi used to say they shouldn't make new fasts anymore, like extra fast days. Not really a good idea, because it's not really very productive. Not so beneficial. Okay, so that's the story, right? Right? So it says, even though we hold, right, that this book, Megillat Tanit, is already nullified. So what does that mean, right? That it was written, as we said, right, in the Second Temple era, and since then, the sages just decided to cancel this book, basically, right, to nullify it, right? And the reason is because a lot of the things that are said there don't apply anymore in the time of the exile. So therefore, the sages decided, right, to can that book, right, basically, to write. But nevertheless, he says, the Chanukah Purim lo batla. But he says regarding Chanukah and Purim, it wasn't nullified. So in other words, whatever it says there regarding these two holidays, it stays intact. That's the way it is, So therefore, we do listen to this book when it comes to what it says about Purim. The in ken lifneim melacharem nami asur. So he says, if that's the case, right, that we want to listen to this book, so then it says also in that book another thing, which is that the day before and the day after these holidays, also it's forbidden to do these things. So meaning what? Why don't we do that, right? In other words, if we listen to it, why don't we listen to it all the way? Why do we go halfway? That's the question. It says in Masechet Tanit, בכל מקום שנאמר דלא משפט בהון לפניהם ולפניהם נם יעשו. So it says there, the general rule is, when it says in this book, right, not to eulogize, it means also the day before and day after, the holiday. ואפילו אחי, it says, nevertheless, נוהגים להתענות בי"ג. So he says, but the custom is, right, that what? That we fast on the 13th, right, of Adar, which is Tanit Esther, right? We all fast on that day. So you see from there, right, that we don't listen to this book all the way, because if we did, we wouldn't be fasting on the 13th. That would be forbidden. Why is that? Because it's the day before Purim. So how does that work? דלה עדיף לפניהם ולאחריהם בחנוכה פורים משאר יומי דמגילות תענית וכיוון דששאר ימים בטלו עיקרן מותר להתענות בהוא אגב דחנוכה פורים לא בטלו עיקרון לפניהם ולאחריהם מי המותר. So he says, right, that explains like this, the Torah, that even though we said, right, that regarding Hanukkah and Purim this book was not nullified, but nevertheless, since it was nullified for all the other content there, so therefore we're not so particular also about Hanukkah and Purim. So therefore we take it like one notch down, one step down. So what does that mean? That we do listen to what it says regarding the holiday itself, but then not the day before and after, right? We don't go that far. That's the idea. Okay, good. Yeah. Right. So let's see the Bet Yosef. We already read a lot. So it says like this, right? That where is the source for all this stuff, right? That the Torah just brought. So it's in the second paragraph, right? Masechet Tanit, Yud Chet Amud Bet. Rashi explains there, Besot Per Kama, in the end of the first parak, the Rosh Hashanah of Rosh Hashanah, right? Not over there, not Gemara, in different Gemara. Megillat Tanit Yamim Tovim Shekavu Chachamim Alidei Nisim. So he says, what is this book Megillat Tanit, right? What is it talking about? What's the theme there, right? So the theme is that it's talking about all kinds of holidays that the rabbis enacted because there was miracles that occurred on those days, So that book enumerates all those days where there was a miracle that occurred, and therefore the rabbis enacted to make a holiday. So, right, according to what we said, right, that it was nullified, the reason it was nullified is because some of these holidays were not celebrated after the destruction of the temple. So therefore, right, a lot of them like went into the recycle bin, right, of history, right. We don't celebrate those days anymore. But right, when it comes to Purim and Hanukkah, those were decreed, as a eternal, kind of a thing, right? So therefore, we still celebrate it until this day, 2,000 years right after the temple was destroyed. We're still celebrating. So yeah, that's what it says, Rashi. So it says, therefore, right, since these days were days that there was miracles that occurred, so therefore they forbade to do fasting, right, on those days. And also there are those that are forbidden also to do eulogy. Right, and they wrote them in the Gemara Megillah. So it says over there, right, there are certain days that we're not allowed to fast on those days. So we said, right, that we're not allowed to fast on Purim. We're not allowed to fast on Hanukkah, right? I think we mentioned that before. So, that's a good example for our times, right? The other holidays that are listed there, as we said, right, already went into the, abyss of history, right? Whatever, right? Not relevant anymore. Okay, good. So, all right. So we have, let's do a little bit more. So it says, right, Mashkatab Kedita Besechet Taniot, that which the Torah said, right, that it's written in Tanit, this whole thing. The Tanan, there's a Mishnah over there, right, in Tanit, Perek Bet in Taniot, in the second Perek, Tetvav Amud Bet, Kol HaKatuv Megillat Tanit, it says over there like this in Mishnah. Everything which is written in Megillat Tanit, this book, right, as we mentioned, the Lo Mispat Lefanav or Lechanav, not to, right, eulogize beforehand and afterwards also, right, the day before, the day after. Mutar. Now, right, so nowadays it's allowed. Right? That's what we're saying. Rabbi Yosef says, Lefanav ulacharav asur. He says no, it's forbidden, right? The day before and the day after. You shouldn't fast on those days. לפניו ולאחריו מותר. So he says, but regarding fasting, right, the day before, day after, it's allowed. Rabbi Yosef says, לפניו אסור, לאחריו מותר. Beforehand, it's forbidden to fast, and after the day after, it's allowed. Peresh Rashi, so Rashi explains, כל הכתוב במגילת תענית דלא נספד, all these things which are written in this Megillat Tanit, not to eulogize there. Date yomin delalit ana, right? So he says there are days that we don't fast. Umiksaton de chamiret face, and some he says are more severe than others, right? Depending on the severity of the holiday or whatever, or the scale of the miracle that occurred, whatever it was, right? According to the rabbi's judgment, whatever they judged, right? The way they judged it. Miksaton de chamiret face, so some are more stringent. Dela lemispad, so we shouldn't even eulogize. Ve'otan shehen chamurim ve'asurim be'esped. So he says the ones that are more stringent, and we don't even eulogize lefanav asur. Beforehand, it's forbidden. Be'esped for eulogy. Dilma ate lemiabad beyom tov gufe. So why did the rabbis forbid it the day before? So he says because you may come to do it also the day of. So therefore, right, they made like a fence around it. So you shouldn't come to do it the day of the holiday itself. Ulacharav mutar. So he says afterwards it's allowed, right? The day after. That's one opinion, right? Since the day passed already, we're not really concerned anymore. And the ones that it says that are not so stringent, not so severe, the asar be'esped, to be forbidden for eulogy. Just they're forbidden for fasting. Ben lefanav v'chulei, right? So that's the whole text there, etc., etc. Ifsika hilchata. So says Bet Yosef, right? Halacha was paskind, the Gemara, right? The Gemara there, Rabbi Yosef, like Rabbi Yosef. But no ayat tzarich Rabbeinu lichtov, right? It says there in the Torah didn't need to write the bechol makom shenemar the lo lemispat behon lefanav. That every place where it says not to fast, right, to eulogize beforehand. I'm sorry, asur. Forbidden. The day before it's forbidden. Because even if it wasn't said for in Purim, just not to fast, it would still be forbidden to fast the day before. Because we hold like Rabbi Yosef. This is also, you didn't really need to write right before and after. Nami asur, that's forbidden. Says because regarding what he wants to say, the Beyom Shalifne Purim, that before Purim Asur is forbidden, later not too fast, Havasagile, that would have been enough. Dilemma Delifnehem Asur, because we can say that beforehand it's forbidden, later not to fast, Ela de Kushta de Milta Kamar, but he said the truth of the matter, he says. The Chevan Shkatubo, the Lola Mispad Defanav, since it's written that we shouldn't eulogize the day before, and also the day after, asur. Therefore, it's forbidden. Interesting. Okay, so we'll do Shulchan Aruch and we'll stop there. Let's see Shulchan Aruch.
So Kavod Harav,
Yes.
The day before and after to eulogize and fast forbidding, yeah.
So, right. I'm sorry. So, as we said, right, that nowadays the conclusion was, if I'm not mistaken, the conclusion was that we don't observe the day before or the day after. But let's see in the Shulchan Aruch, right? So this way we'll get clarity exactly what's forbidden and what's forbidden and what's permitted. Okay, if I remember correctly, that's the way we said it. Okay. So. Yeah. Right. So as I said, right, that's what the Shulchan Aruch says here. Very short and brief, right? It says the Chanukah Purim, right? Okay, so Chanukah Purim, mutar litanot lifnei melachayim. You're allowed to fast the day before or the day after, right? That's what he says. And what about eulogy, right? That's the question. So let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says here. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention eulogy. So says the Mishnah Berurah. Right. Also, he says, right, same thing with eulogy. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Right. So the conclusion is the day before and after it's allowed. And what's the reason why? Because it was really nullified, this whole thing somewhat, partially, and therefore we don't go so stringent anymore, to forbid the day before and after. We're not going that gung ho, right, with this thing. So because it's already been diluted, the whole decree has been diluted already. Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll stop there, Bezat Hashem. We'll see you next time, which is next week, right? On Sunday, Bezat Hashem. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Right? Pray for our amazing soldiers that are wiping out, right, the seed of Amalek over there. Baruch Hashem, right? One by one, every cockroach, every Nazi, right? Every enemy that we have, wiping them out, Baruch Hashem, one by one, one by one. Every Jew hater that there is over there, right? All those Jew haters, those Jew killers, right? All those people. Baruch Hashem. Shtabach Shemo. Kadosh Baruch Hu has given us something to celebrate, that we're wiping out this great enemy. So Hashem should give us, Bezat Hashem, victory and miracles. And we should see, Bezat Hashem, more miracles until Mashiach comes, Bezat Hashem. And we will see the ultimate miracles, right? The ultimate vengeance on Rome and Edom, and for what they did to the Jewish people, how they harmed us, how they, afflicted us. All the cheshbonot, all the accounting will be done. You know what I mean? Nothing will be left out. Bezat Hashem. Okay, so Shabbat Shalom, Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov.
Kavod Harav, thank you so much. Shabbat
Amen,
Shalom.
amen. God bless.